The Galactic Hall of Thrones was a monument to ego and empire, a kilometer of glittering crystal and light suspended in orbit above the gas giant Torva 9. It was where kings and queens of 10,000 species gathered to boast, threaten, and pretend the galaxy was a civil place. On that day, every eye was fixed on the human. Ambassador Lyra Vance stood alone in the center of the hall, the blue of Earth's diplomatic robes dull beside the radiant silks and chitin armor of alien royalty. Her hands were clasped neatly before her. Her hair, silver white from stress or age, no one knew, caught the light like a blade. And on the throne above her, the Galactic King smiled. "Humanity," he said, voice echoing through the chamber, "has grown bold since we last permitted them to crawl into our council. Tell me, Ambassador Vance, are you here to beg again? Or merely to amuse us with stories of your fragile world?" Laughter rippled through the nobles. Lyra didn't blink. "Neither, Your Majesty. I'm here to discuss peace." The laughter grew louder. The king, a massive horned being of obsidian skin and gold-plated veins, leaned forward, eyes burning with amusement. "Peace. After your fleets trespassed in my dominion. After your soldiers slaughtered my son." Her voice didn't waver. "Your son attacked a civilian colony, Majesty. He murdered 3,000 settlers." The king rose. The hall trembled with his fury. "You dare to speak the truth?" Lyra's tone cut clean through the air. "Yes." The guards moved before anyone gave the order. Blades of plasma hissed to life, surrounding her in a circle of glowing death. Lyra only sighed. "So this is diplomacy now." The king's grin returned, cruel and cold. "You misunderstand your position, human. You are not in a negotiation. You are in a tomb. Humanity will learn its place." He gestured lazily. "Kill her." The guards struck. And then the galaxy learned something new about Earth. The first guard's blade stopped mid-swing, frozen, suspended inches from her throat. The second one stumbled, his weapon clattering to the floor. The others recoiled as the air thickened, heavy with a pressure that bent light and thought alike. Lyra raised her head. Her eyes were no longer human. They were black, not the color of ink or shadow, but of the void between stars. The lights in the hall flickered. The crystal floor beneath her feet cracked like ice on a frozen lake. When she spoke again, her voice carried an undertone that wasn't sound at all. It was memory. The echo of every death the galaxy had ever known. "I came to offer peace," she said softly. "But your kind only understands balance. So let me show you what humanity sends when peace is refused." The guards screamed as their armor twisted inward, collapsing their forms into spheres of metal and dust. Gasps echoed across the hall. Nobles stumbled back, some reaching for weapons, others for prayers. The king stood frozen, not in fear but disbelief. What are you?" Lyra stepped forward. The floor melted beneath her boots. "We are what you made us." 2 centuries earlier, humanity had been broken. Earth, shattered by war and stripped of resources, was left out of the Galactic Union's mercy. The Council had called them primitives, useful as soldiers, expendable as diplomats. But what the galaxy didn't know was that the human spirit, when cornered, didn't die. Changed. The Terran ascendancy was born in silence, an alliance of scientists, soldiers, and ghosts. They built weapons not of steel but of thought. They experimented with quantum psionics, the art of binding consciousness to subspace itself. They created ambassadors like Lyra Vance, people who could walk among gods and not flinch, people who carried death as a language. Back in the hall, the King's Guard commander barked orders. "Contain her." Energy fields flickered into existence, humming with antimatter dampeners. Lyra smiled faintly. Containment. A classic. She stepped through the field as though it were fog. The field sputtered, overloaded, and vanished in a shower of sparks. "You killed my son," the king growled, rage replacing awe. "For that, I will end your world." Lyra tilted her head. "You already tried. You sent the virus to our colonies, the famine drones, the radiation bombs. We survived everyone. Because that's what humans do." She took another step, and suddenly she was no longer in front of him. She was everywhere. Hundreds of afterimages filled the hall, each a flickering echo of her presence. When they spoke, the sound overlapped into a chorus. "You see, Majesty. You think of death as an ending. We think of it as a conversation." The king roared and struck with his warstaff, a weapon older than most stars. Could split continents. It shattered the air itself. But when the blow landed, it hit nothing. Lyra appeared behind him, calm as a storm before impact. "Your son died screaming, Majesty. He begged for mercy. Do you know what I told him?" The king turned, bellowing. "Liar! I told him the truth." Her eyes flared white. "That mercy is for the living." The throne cracked apart as invisible force hurled the king backward. He crashed into his own banners, bringing down pillars of light and crystal. The nobles fled in chaos, their regal poise forgotten, as alarms filled the hall. "Security breach. Class Omega entity detected." She ignored them. She walked to where the king struggled to rise. "You ruled through fear," she said quietly. "You built an empire on the graves of the weak. You thought humanity would kneel because you saw only flesh." She knelt beside him. "You never learned to look into our eyes." And then she showed him. For a heartbeat, he saw through her gaze. Through every human life that had ever fought, loved and died. Through the endless march of soldiers in trenches, explorers beneath alien suns, mothers cradling their children in burning cities. He saw that humanity's strength was not in power, but in its refusal to break. When the vision ended, the king was weeping. "Stop," he gasped. "Please." Lyra stood. "I came for peace, Majesty. Do you accept it now?" He nodded, trembling, broken. She smiled sadly. "Good." She turned and walked away as the hall burned around her. Hours later, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. The footage from the hall spread like wildfire. Billions watched the moment the king fell. Billions more debated whether she was a human, a weapon, or something far worse. In the council chamber, the eldest of the Varn emissaries hissed, "We cannot allow them to continue their experiments. Humanity has crossed a line." Another delegate, a crystalline being from the Arion Collective, responded, "Crossed? Well, they redefined it." And then from the shadows, a voice spoke, calm, human, and familiar. Lyra Vance stepped into the light. "You talk about fear," she said. "But fear is what keeps us alive. You talk about limits, but you gave up your right to define ours when you tried to erase us." The chamber fell silent. "We offered peace. You answered with extinction. Now you'll deal with consequence." The Arion delegate's core shimmered. "You threaten us." Lyra's eyes were calm. "No, I'm explaining the new balance. From this day forward, humanity is no longer your subject. We are your mirror." The council broke into chaos. Some demanded sanctions, others war. But none dared to move against her. Because deep down they all knew, if she could break a king, she could break them too. That night, aboard the Terran ship Resolute, Lyra sat alone in her quarters. The walls hummed with subspace energy, faintly resonating with her thoughts. A message flickered on the screen. Incoming transmission, Terran command. The face that appeared was older, lined with both pride and concern. "You did well, Ambassador," said Admiral Corrin. "The King's surrender has stabilized 3 sectors. But you went beyond your directive." Lyra leaned back. "Would you have preferred I died politely?" "You revealed our hand," the Admiral said. "The galaxy now knows what we've become." "They were always going to find out," she replied softly. "Better they fear us than pity us." Corrin studied her. "And you? Do you still remember what it means to be human?" Lyra looked down at her hands, still trembling faintly, still remembering the feel of death moving through her veins like a second heartbeat. "I remember," she whispered. "That's why I'm dangerous." The screen went dark. Decades later, the story of that day became legend. Children on distant worlds whispered her name like a curse or a prayer. Some called her the Angel of Death, others the Shadow Diplomat. But on Earth, where the stars burned brighter than ever before, they remembered her simply as the woman who refused to kneel. And somewhere in the quiet expanse of the void, where light itself bends to silence, a lone human ship drifted, its captain watching the stars. She smiled. Because she knew that in every corner of the galaxy, every tyrant and conqueror now looked over their shoulder before speaking humanity's name. And that was peace enough.